All right, welcome everybody. It's just a few minutes past the hour. I see people still trickling in here, but they can catch up as we go. We have a 30-minute slot, so I want to stick right to things. So officially, hello, welcome to our webinar series. Today we're going to discuss the Veeam-powered DRaaS service, what that means for you, and we'll have a live demonstration for our Veeam DRaaS solution offering by Brad as well. So the presenters here, there's myself, Matt Chesterton, and Brad Jervis, one of our senior cloud engineers. I'll be doing most of the presentation part here, and Brad will be going through the live demo of a partial failover. So it should be a pretty interesting experience to see what he has to show us. On your screen, you're going to find some contact for us here. I've included numbers for North America, European, Middle East, African, and Asian Pacific markets. I know that we have a wide audience today in several different markets, so I want to put these all online here. I've also included our sales distribution list and our partners contact list in case there's any questions that come up either during or after our presentation here today. A quick note here too, in 2016 we're going on a roadshow, really excited about that, so we'll probably be coming to a city near you or hopefully your city itself. So keep this in mind if you want to take a screenshot, or we're going to make these PDFs and webinar recording available offline after the presentation as well. So if you're in one of these cities or in a close location to these, then we'd hope to meet up with you later on this year. So again, we have 30 minutes scheduled, and I'd like to use that time to review the business case and the technical case for Veeam-defined DRaaS and related service components that we deliver. In order to keep that time frame, I'm going to run through the slide deck straight through, and my team is online here as well. They're going to take any questions via the email addresses in the previous slide, and we also have a moderation or chat platform on GoToWebinar. So please, if you have any questions, chat those in. There's a group of folks that can answer any kind of questions relative. If there are any questions that remain open after the presentation, we'll reach out directly afterwards or as time permits here. As far as topics, like I said, we'll start a brief introduction. I told you about the presenters a bit, gave you our contact information, and we'll run through the agenda that you see here in front of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about us, OffisteDataSync, and the service we deliver and how that's different than other services you might see out there on the Veeam DRaaS platform. I'll go into some details about the Tier 4 Gold certified data center that we operate out of, its security metrics and things that are pertinent to that service. I'll review the corporate strategy of DRaaS, disaster recovery as a service, build versus buy, and then you'll have the demo by Brad, and then he'll hand it back to me, and I'll give you the last closing remarks and then any questions that remain after that. So I'm often asked why OffisteDataSync? OffisteDataSync is recognized as a strong service provider of Veeam backup and replication services. We believe we're a best fit in the Veeam Cloud Connect service provider market for several reasons. First of all, our top priority is the security of your data and compliance with any kind of metrics that you need to meet with that. We've taken great care with every detail of our Veeam Cloud Connect service, and that's from the facility to the servers and data storage units that we use to protect your data. The delivery for replication will be out of one of the only Tier 4, and actually the only Tier 4 Gold carrier neutral data center on the planet, which is certified by the Uptime Institute. The next couple slides after this, I'll get into some of those details. Our portal for service is configured or has received an A+ rating from SSLLabs.com, and we've taken care with every detail to keep your data safe and secure, and that there's no any kind of compromise that we're going to put your data through. You can see as well that we have the experience and ability to execute. We're a top 100 global cloud service provider and have been listed for 2 years in a row now in the Talking Cloud Top 100 Global Cloud Service Providers. We have a very innovative delivery of the Veeam Cloud Connect service. I'm going to take you through some of those features and different flexible options that are available via our portal. So please, if you have any questions, let me know about that. When I go through those, there is a link to last month's webinar. So if you have any specifics, we can send that link along, as well as connect with you specifically to go over what that means and what those options are. And finally, of course, we look at the Veeam DRaaS service that we offer as a comprehensive suite. So not only do we get your data off-site, in many cases that could be considered the easy part, but we provide a platform that can cover DR hosting, planning, testing, and compliance documentation. Those are very difficult things, but we've integrated that into the Veeam Cloud Connect service offering that we provide. So a couple of definitions to kick off. The term DRaaS, I guess I'd like to make sure we have a baseline of DRaaS versus backup as a service and some other terms that are out there on the market. Most on this webinar are familiar with the term DRaaS, I'm going to guess. It stands for Disaster Recovery as a Service. DRaaS is a service provided by an organization like OffisteDataSync to provide customers a hot or warm server failover site in a per month or per year or some sort of per unit fashion like that. In an optimal scenario, all the complexities of disaster recovery are taken out of this service. So end users don't have to maintain a co-location facility with space, power, bandwidth. Additional hardware doesn't need to be purchased. Dedicated IT staff and specialists aren't needed to recover or fail over from any kind of disaster. So essentially, DR as a service abstracts all the details around offsite, geographically diverse protection, and all the underlying technology required to do that. So OffisteDataSync clearly follows this model. It's incorporated secure data transmission and hot-warm server boot and failover with Veeam. We've also integrated DR planning, hosting, development, and the entire business process around disaster recovery into this offering. In contrast to that is the definition around backup as a service. And it doesn't have a very catchy thing like DRaaS. I don't know how you say BUAS, but it's essentially backup as a service. So essentially what that is customers that are looking for safe and secure data protection off-site without having to manage any of the complexities or VPNs or connections to get data off-site. It's all built into the same user console, the user interface of Veeam. So when we talk about backup as a service, it's the comprehensive service to get data off-site. We do also provide the ability to restore that. It's not a native boot feature, but it would take a restore process to do it, but we do have that obviously as well. So those are some of the differences between DRaaS and backup as a service and how we deliver them. So on a note on delivery, we deliver our Veeam DRaaS service out of one of the most secure and highly certified data center facilities in the world, a Tier 4 facility run by Switch and known as SuperNAP. The current tiering standard, and I think this is very important, so I put the next two slides just to talk about this. The current tiering standard was developed and is evaluated by the Uptime Institute. I had ready today, and I'll pull it up here. One moment. The Uptime Institute website. I think this is so important that I wanted to take 30 seconds just to run through the tiering system, how Uptime essentially runs through their design, construction, and operational sustainability certifications so that when there's claims that are made or when you understand where your data is being protected, it holds the appropriate weight that it should. You'll notice in the slide behind here that there are only 4 Tier 4 constructed or construction certified data centers that exist in the United States. I listed them down here. Switch SuperNAP is one of them, and then there's 2 private banking facilities. And you can easily see that on the Uptime Institute's website. If you click on constructed facility, and then you say by country, United States, and you go with Tier 4, you'll see there are 4 listed, and any other claims outside of this are simply not certified by the Uptime Institute. So if you dig even deeper and you look into operational sustainability, I'm just going to go back. And you click on operational sustainability. You can choose United States and look at Tier 4. You'll notice there are 2 facilities listed. One is the Switch SuperNAP, and the other one is a private bank. You'll notice also the private banks are not carrier-neutral facilities. They're not going to be facilities that you can deliver Veeam Cloud Connect service out of. They're not co-location facilities. They're privately owned by banking corporations. So there is one Tier 4 Gold operationally sustainable carrier-neutral data center on the planet, and that is Switch SuperNAP. Why do I bring that up? Essentially because there is much confusion and misconceptions and misnomers on the market. I'm not going to click on these links and take you through, but they are going to be available afterwards. In preparing for this webinar, of course, I did my due diligence and I made some calls, and I even uncovered a couple of things within our ecosystem, the Veeam Cloud Connect ecosystem. Claims that are made of a Tier 4 facility out of Chicago And I encourage you all to do what I did in preparation for this webinar, which is ask the question, where is your data center certified? Who's certified it? You can see here that I got a chat back from a gentleman named Jake who said, sorry for the misinformation, it's actually a tier 3, even though we listed it as a tier 4 on our website, which is what he sent to me. So I think it's important just for the sense that accuracy and understanding what you're purchasing and when you're purchasing it, the questions to ask and what tier 4 means, what tier 3 means, and where to really go to the source of what you're running out of and what you're paying for. So I think that's an important piece. If you would like a little bit more in-depth look at the Switch SuperNAP and how we deliver service out of that, join us next month for a tour of the modern data center. It's going to be quite a thing. If you haven't seen the Switch SuperNAP kind of under the hood, it's an impressive facility out in the deserts of Las Vegas. So certainly really cool. If you may have seen a bunch of data centers and thinking, if I've seen one, I've seen them all, but I can guarantee you it's not like the Switch SuperNAP. So that'll be next month. I think it's March 16th, and we'll send you a link out after today's webinar. So onto the topic of DRaaS, or disaster recovery specifically. When looking at how to best protect data assets and corporate information, I break it down into two major headings or topics. First, you have to define and plan organizational objectives. So look at what is really a risk to you and how that would impact your business. So essentially that's called a business impact analysis and a risk assessment. Next, you'd have to define, once you understand what the risks are they tornadoes, are they natural disasters, are they hacking or ransomware, and how does that impact your business. You can define RTOs, so return time objectives, and RPOs, return point objectives. I'm stealing Veeam's term here for RTPOs, but it is kind of a cool combination of both. Essentially, if you know these numbers, whether it's one day that you have to be back online or that an application can be back online, or if it's an hour or 15 minutes, then you can start to develop, test, and perfect the plan that you know will appropriately protect your business. Once those are defined, so your RTOs and RPOs, you have a couple of options in building a strategy for disaster recovery. Essentially, you choose a protection platform, and by that I mean a software package. In this example, I'm using Veeam, but after that, you'd have to either build an in-house solution or buy an out-of-the-box solution, which of course in today's example is Veeam with a Cloud Connect provider. And a quick note on that, of course we are a Veeam service provider, and it may sound like an endorsement of course for Veeam, and it is in a sense, of course, and it's for good reason. Veeam is a package that just works. I've been on more calls than I can tell you with customers who've said, it is a great package, it works. I log in and I can see that everything's just green, there's green light, so I still get a chuckle out of that when I see customers or prospects use the term, well, yeah, it just works. I'm waiting for a problem to happen, but it just doesn't have any kind of hiccups or anything like that. So I use Veeam as the mechanism today to talk about. We do offer other solutions, but it's such a solid platform that of course we wanted to address DRaaS as a service with Veeam. So I wanted to give fair measure, though, if you were looking at other platforms, of course, one of the main sources to go to is Gartner. I look at these in three categories, and you're going to notice this is a 2015 Gartner Magic Quadrant. I think what you're going to see in 2016 is Veeam move up more into a leader position, and a lot of the legacy backup platforms move downward. In fact, we've already seen that on a lot of the articles on Commvault that they're losing market share to Veeam, and Veeam is moving up is proof to that case. So very interesting. Certainly Veeam is positioned very well, and it's a strong application. But essentially there's some notes I have here. I did have a little bit more detail, but I'm going to skip over that just to keep to our time frame. I know most of you are on lunch, or a lot of you are on lunch if you're on the East Coast, and I don't want to take up too much time that I don't need to on that. So what I was looking at essentially for today's business case was the build versus buy. And if you're looking at a build case for a DRaaS platform, or I should say a disaster recovery platform, it's not as a service if you're building it, you have to look at co-location costs, so space, power, and bandwidth. And then appropriately, I wanted to get into what tier 2, 3, and 4 data centers cost. From a space standpoint, you can see, and these are on average. I made a whole lot of phone calls and did some background research and had some help from my team, but what you can see here is that a 42U or 1 rack is approximately, in US dollars, $400 for a tier 2 data center rack, and then it scales up if you look at tier 3 or tier 4 data centers. Power, likewise, you can see it scale up, and of course, not surprisingly, bandwidth as well. Again, keep in mind there's no consistent, or there's no determine price across the board, but what I did was essentially average cost and round up from there. So after you have a co-location defined, of course you have to rack it out with equipment. I went on the very cheap side here because essentially I didn't want to inflate numbers for the case of making the business case against building your own solution. So I looked at a fairly inexpensive Dell 3200 MD 3200i, approximately $16,500. I'm not going to read these line by line for you, but 2 hosts, the software to run, well, the hypervisor software to run the cluster, a router and a firewall built into one. I chose the SonicWall NSA 2400. I know it's fairly common in small business or enterprise or mid-market, I should say, along with some core switching, so some Juniper 4300s. Took the cost, extended them out, added them up, divided by 36. I didn't get fancy with lease rate calculators and all that, so I simply took $32,050 divided by 36. That's $890 a month. Lastly, of course, I want to make the case for support, so soft cost setup. I estimated if you were going to build your own solution, it's going to take you approximately 80 hours at a very cheap rate, and nobody with benefits and all that comes to $50 an hour. But again, I want to keep it on the low side. So that, and then monthly maintenance of 8 hours, which is probably about right, 2 hours or so per week to make sure the things are running well, monitor, things like that, and of course the occasional crisis that comes up. So 511, I took all those costs, added it up, and it came out to about $3,200 a month on the cheap side. I didn't even include software protection yet, so I didn't even include the Veeam package and what those costs would be. So that is your build it case. And of course, you compare that to a buy it case, which I'll get in, I guess, in a second here. I put 3 notes. The funny thing about the build it case, of course, is you do all this work and you rack out your equipment, and then, of course, you hope it's never used. And then in 3 to 5 years, when the technology becomes old or runs out of warranty, it's essentially replaced. So you go through this whole process again. And then lastly, if it's used, heaven forbid, you have your top IT resources trying to bring everything online, not fix the situation or recoup from the situation that happened in your main site or headquarters location to begin with. So it's an interesting case, the build it side. I'm not saying it doesn't fit or that it fits everybody, but you have to pick and choose and say, is it worth it to build your own DR location and rack it out with equipment and manage it that way? Of course, the alternative is a cloud-based burstable resource service like the Veeam DRaaS service that we offer. It's based on demand, and as far as costs go, those are on demand as well. The latest in hardware and best practices, and of course we are on call 24/7 by 365 in case there is some kind of disaster. How much does it cost? Let's take a look here. If I clicked on services.offsitedatasync.com, you'd see it, but in preparation, I got the portal right up here so I can walk through this, and I'm going to speed along here because I know we have 30 minutes. I want to keep it pretty tight and give Brad enough time. So again, if you go to services.offsitedatasync.com, I'm going to go through a couple of use cases here. You can order this online. Just say, no, I'm not a Veeam customer yet, and I'm not a technology provider. My browser will fill in the details. We have a progress bar here, and it's going to take us to the order screen. We do have some limitations on here. If you are within an organization that has over 10 terabytes, we'd like to engage with you. So it's only up to 10 terabytes of storage that we show online, but we can support much more than that. I'm not going to get into all the details. I'm going to kind of fly through this order configuration page, essentially because we have a webinar from last month that can show that, and again, I can send you the link. So you choose your platform, the hypervisor. You go through your billing term. I'm going to choose annual. You choose your data center, and of course, I'm going to choose the SuperNet facility. And let's go with the service tier of silver. If you're wondering what that is, there's buttons here that can tell you what that calls out. And then we have some flex-to-store options. Again, really cool options, but I'm not going to get into all those right now and what they mean because I want to keep right to our time frame. I'll choose our burst method, and let's just go simply with, let's go with 2 terabytes of storage. Let's say I have 2 VMs that I think are the most important to have replicated. I guess I like 2s today, but I'll go 2 down the board. So you can see here essentially that your Veeam replication DRaaS service would cost a total of $745 per month for 2 terabytes with 2 VMs replicated. It's very easy to either drag the sliders and increase your storage amount so that you can see your costs go up. If you have 5 terabytes, it's $1631.60. Easily configure the next couple of screens. You can just walk through here. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to have one of our salespeople call me up and want to sell me something, but essentially if you configure this, it'll tell you what the costs are for our service. So that's our portal with some options. Again, there is a link with much more detail on our options and configuration that we can send you after this. I had this up in case things didn't work. And Brad, I think you are probably on board with me now too. I may have cut you a little short on time, but I'm going to make you the presenter so that we can actually see a live partial failover. Brad, I just made you presenter. Are you there?
I'm here. Hold on one second, Matt. Okay, let's see. Let me know when you can see my screen if you don't mind. Nothing yet?
I don't see you yet, no. There we go.
All right.
All yours.
Well, today. All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is going to be a very short demo just because we are running a little bit low on time here. If you're interested in seeing some of the other cool things that not only Veeam but also OffisteDataSync can do, please take a look at our roadshow, and we'll have a lot more time to kind of demonstrate a lot of these cool features and everything. For today's purposes, we're just going to demonstrate a partial site failover. So essentially this is just a case of this single VM replica right here, and we're going to intimidate it failing. So I've already gone through and turned this virtual machine off, and you can take a look at its IP address right there. So just to make sure that there's no smoke and mirrors or anything, let me just open up a command prompt here. And I'm going to see if I can give this toast a ping. So once this failover is done, we're going to expect this ping to work. Great, it doesn't work. Perfect. So let me just go ahead and kick off this partial site failover here. Takes a few seconds for Veeam to work its magic in the background and prepare everything, so just bear with me here for one moment. All right. We'll go ahead and stick with the defaults. It's not too much information to ask here. It's all pretty much automated on the Veeam side. So this is going to go through and it's going to give us a status box in just a moment about how this failover is doing, the status and all that other good stuff. While this is happening in the background, I just kind of want to explain to you a little bit about how this is all working. So when you sign up for Veeam Cloud Connect replication with OffisteDataSync, you have to deploy, or I'm sorry, Veeam will deploy a network extension appliance inside of your existing vCenter or Hyper-V cluster. What this network extension appliance does is essentially acts as a virtual endpoint for a site-to-site VPN tunnel that gets established to OffisteDataSync through the regular Cloud Connect gateway external port. All of the traffic is encapsulated down into the same Cloud Connect external port that you would normally have in backup, and it handles all of the traffic that exists between OffisteDataSync's infrastructure and the client's infrastructure. So what's happening here is right now the network extension appliances are getting powered on in not only the tenant side but also an OffisteDataSync side. Once that network extension appliance turns on, it establishes a site-to-site layer 2 VPN tunnel, and it deploys a service on the tenant side called ProxyArt. What this does is it will essentially say, hey, I'm looking for any traffic heading towards this V9 CG2 device that I've decided to fail over. Let me know if anything is trying to reach it, and I'll forward all our requests over my layer 2 VPN tunnel into OffisteDataSync's infrastructure, and the end result is we can communicate with the device just as if it was locally still available on our network. So we'll give this here just a few more moments to do its thing. Usually it takes about a little under 2 minutes to get this done, and we'll see how it all works.
Brad, while you're waiting, I'm reading some of the questions here. One is pretty good. Somebody suggested that name pronunciation of backup as a service is DRaaS, so DRaaS. I like it. Might have even coined a new term.
All right, looks like everything is working here. We have the VPN established, failover completed. Let's see if we can ping our host. Oh, excellent. Now, as a final test, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remote desktop into that box, and we'll see how everything performs. Looks like I have the old host here. Let's see if I can connect. Let's see. Oh, I see what I did wrong here. Looks like I got the IP address wrong. Give me 1 second. Let me adjust this. All right, there's our host. Great. Let's see if we can log in. All right, let's see how this connects here. Now remember, this VM just started up, so what's probably going to happen is going to take a little bit of time for us to log in, and we're also going to see this lovely untracked shutdown box probably appear. There we go. Okay, great. So everything is looking good here, and life is good. So Matt, and for respect to time, I think we're already running over. Let me pass it back to you here really quickly.
Okay, great. I think I have it back here. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right stuff. So can you see my screen there, Brad?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. I'll take it back then. So what Brad showed you was a partial failover. There is also the instance where there could be a full site failover. Essentially what that would indicate is there is some kind of catastrophic event, a crater in the ground where your office used to be, and of course that begs the question of how do you fail over if you don't have access to the Veeam console? And the very simple, easy answer is you have some sort of web-enabled device, whether it's a phone, a browser, someplace, any place really. We've built into our portal the ability to, it's very light, and I know the screen is small, but down toward the bottom you'll see a Start Production Failover button that will actually start a failover of all the VMs in your environment. They're pre-configured with WAN IP addresses. If you've configured it as such, they come alive, and then you can access via the ports that you've already enabled through the network extension appliances. So essentially that's built into our portal as well. I'm going to keep things really short here and tight. Again, I know it's 12:31. We're just a few minutes behind. But as far as the technical challenges, Brad addressed obviously some of the main ones that are there with failing over VPN setup, connectivity afterwards, routing traffic back and forth with reverse ARP proxy. I want to just touch on the business complexities, of course, around DRaaS as a service, or DRaaS, with DR plan development, who's included, who's involved, all the things here. I'm not going to read them verbatim to you, as well as DR plan testing. And then one of the most important pieces, if you are a compliance-regulated industry, how to maintain that compliance documentation. Essentially what we've done and built out with our offering is address each one of those business challenges. So disaster recovery planning is built into our Veeam DRaaS service and our Veeam, I'm going to call it VRaaS service, so that if you do need to develop a plan, we have the essentially the experts here to walk you through that. It is a custom touch thing on our end, and even on some of our upper tiers of service, we include the planning into those tiers. We obviously offer the hosting. This is just a table of contents. They typically fall somewhere between, I'm going to blanket it and say 50 to 100 pages of documentation on how a plan should run. We call out assembly points, who's involved, numbers, media contacts, really the A to Z with DR planning, and of course we host it in our portal. We also offer backup and DR testing. Obviously, if you're paying for a backup service, you're paying many hundreds, in some cases many thousands of dollars per year. It's prudent and a good practice to test those backups. So we restore these to the enterprise or private cloud infrastructure that we offer, and you can see the machines come up. You know that they're safe offsite. We recommend this once or twice a year, and again, we include this in our comprehensive platform with some of the upper tiers. Lastly, of course, is the compliance documentation piece. Very important for, I can get into it, but you name the agency, whether it's ITAR, IEEE, HIPAA, depending on what the agency is that needs compliance documentation, we've integrated all of that into our Veeam DRaaS and Veeam Cloud Connect offering. So the real power, I think, of the service is that it's not just data backup off-site, but we're going to help you define what your times are to recover, and then build it and integrate it all into our service that's available on the portal. So this is the end of our webinar. It's short and sweet. If there are any questions, please keep the chat going here. I'm going to leave the webinar live and intact if there are any people that want to chat in some questions to our moderators. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the webinar, and you will see us next month. Again, I'll send out the invite to everybody on this webinar for the next month one, a tour of the modern data center, which should be just a great and really cool look at the Switch SuperNAT and how we offer service with Veeam. And as well, if anybody's interested in the previous webinar from last month, that's going to go through all the configuration options that I showed you on the portal. So thanks for joining us, and hope to see you back here soon. Take care.
Matt, I just noticed that we had a question coming in from one of our folks asking how the proxy ARP services work and where they live. Apologies if I didn't make that clear, but just want to reiterate that that service is deployed from what Veeam calls a network extension appliance. This appliance gets deployed when you sign up for our service. You can give it a DHCP address, you can give it a static address, and everything works directly through this network extension appliance. The only thing that you have to do is essentially point it to which host or cluster you want to deploy it on, and also give it either a DHCP or a static address, and everything runs off of that. There's no external configuration or anything that's involved in setting up these services.
Yep, okay. Good answer. I see another one here by a gentleman named Mark asking if all this is happening via the local Veeam client. I don't know if that was addressed by the moderator, Mark, but it is. What Brad showed you is all being completed and addressed at the local client, and this could have been relative to before I showed the portal, but you can also do the failover process in the portal. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, Brad, I'm just going to, yep, there, I'm getting some replies in. I'm not so fancy where I know how to unmute everybody, or actually, if I think about that, that could be dangerous too. But I'm going to leave it on here so everybody can keep chatting. If you do have questions, keep them coming in.